as of now. And Gaurish, the stage is all yours.
Hi, Krenar. Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining in today's session, which is under the series Move to Cloud, ERP, a practical guide. And today's session, like Krenar mentioned, is going to be all about moving to cloud with a focus on two-tier strategy. So thank you for joining. It's part of our webinar series that we do every year. So this year, this is the first session, and there are many more sessions to come going on. If you want to look at the last year's session, you can check out also our YouTube channel. My name is Gaurish, and I'm a principal enterprise architect at SAP in Switzerland. I'm part of the premium engagement group within a team called as Enterprise Architecture and Advisory. I've been with SAP for around 6 months now, and prior to that, I was working at customers and in consulting as an enterprise architect, and previously in different roles. So, like I said today, today's session is titled Enterprise Architect Guide on Moving to S/4HANA Cloud, but we will focus on a very specific topic because enterprise architecture is a very broad domain. We will be focusing on instance strategy, and within instance strategy, we will be talking about specifically the two-tier instance strategy. We will also be taking questions from the audience later on. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and Krenar will be moderating the questions as they come. Okay, with that, we start. I have to show this disclaimer as we start, just a standard procedure to make sure that whatever we say can change eventually as SAP develops its new products and offering. Today's agenda is going to be very detailed. So we'll start with SAP's solution portfolio. What are we doing? How is our offering in terms of the overall solution portfolio? Then there has been a lot of discussion on a role of an enterprise architect at SAP. So we will touch upon how SAP sees enterprise architecture and enterprise architect as a role. Then we will move on to why do I need an instance strategy? So this is how enterprise architects can make a difference when deciding something that is very, very impactful and long-term decision for an organization. We will talk about how we can evaluate different instance strategy options and what are the different patterns. What is a two-tier architecture with the S/4HANA public cloud? Different case studies. So we will talk about real case studies of the customers who have completed this journey or in process of completing this journey of two-tier architecture. We will quickly touch upon S/4HANA public cloud capabilities and the resources that SAP provides you to help in your journey. With that, first, we look at the SAP solution portfolio. Some of you might be familiar with this slide, wherein we have the Business Technology Platform or BTP as the foundation of our portfolio, on top of which is the Cloud ERP, which is largely two solution offerings, SAP S/4HANA Public Cloud and SAP S/4HANA Private Cloud. Around the core ERP, we have the industry specific solutions. So these are specific solutions for different industries such as oil and gas, retail, so on and so forth. Around that, we have the line of business solutions, and you'll see the new naming of the line of business solutions, which is human capital management, spend management, supply chain management, and customer relationship management. Around that, we have the partner ecosystem and solutions which are developed and run by partners, and then our AI-powered business processes. So this is where we introduce Joule and we introduce business AI as integral part of our strategy of becoming the #1 cloud application company and #1 business AI company. In terms of how SAP sees the role of enterprise architect, this is just an overview slide to set the context for this discussion. We see enterprise architect as an advisor and sparring partner to understand and drive the business's vision and priorities and orchestrate the different projects and programs within an organization. We want to have enterprise architects who can maximize business impact and optimize the SAP's technology for innovation and IT leadership with the customers. We want to accelerate cloud adoption journey, ensure that we deploy innovative solutions and adopt them, and support in streamlining decision making for strategic cloud target architecture. So build the architecture for the future and the transient architecture to get there, and also bring in holistic outside in perspective from different customers and different industries that we work on. So overall, it's a very strategic role at SAP. We work with IT stakeholders of different levels across industries, and we advise them on how to drive their transformation projects. So this brings to a question, which is the focus of today's topic. Why do I need an instant strategy? Or maybe I should take a step back and say, what is what is an instant strategy? So instant strategy is basically the strategy of how you are using your SAP landscape, how are you going to slice and dice the SAP landscape to ensure that your business runs smoothly? And why do we need an instant strategy? We need an instant strategy because we are seeing that the business models across the world are changing. For example, traditional car makers are going into EV manufacturing. Retail companies are going direct to customer. So in order to cater to evolving business models, we need to adapt to new business processes and entirely new business models. Companies are transforming by centralizing services like finance and procurement. They are extending their supply chain with an ecosystem of business partners across the globe. We are also seeing lots of mergers and acquisitions happening. So companies want to be able to acquire companies and integrate them very quickly and onboard them onto their business organization. They want to standardize across subsidiaries the processes that they follow, and eventually maybe prepare for anticipated divestiture as well. So if they want to spin off a part of the company, which, in order to divest it, they could also look at an instant strategy of how they can do that from an SAP systems point of view. Venturing into new markets. So companies are growing fast. They are going into emerging and new markets. They are expanding through joint ventures. And when you do that, you also need to consider how you can support the business with a new ERP. How do we adapt to geopolitical situation? The geopolitical situations are changing across the globe, and also the data residency regulations across the globe are changing as well. So how do we adapt to that? And this is where a role of an enterprise architect comes in, is how do you define something as important as an instant strategy? How do you make sure that the decisions that you make today in terms of the instant strategy are valid for next 5, 10, 15 years and don't become a bottleneck for you in the future? So in order to do that, we kind of propose a 4-step framework. So this is engage, assess, evaluate, and conclude. And we'll see each of the steps very clearly going forward. So in Engage, you start with the business strategy discussion. You understand what are the drivers of the business, who are the stakeholders across the organization, who should be involved in this decision making. What is the IT strategy? What are the IT drivers, whether it's cost, whether it's centralization, whether it's having a global template? What are these key important considerations that you need to factor in? Understand both business and IT stakeholders and their functional needs. So talking to the finance, procurement, supply chain, sales across different functions, and understanding how they see their business growing in next 5 to 10 years. So this is why we call it Engage, where we kind of, bring everybody together and understand what are the key things that are important for business and IT. Next is a step Assess. That is where you understand the as-is scenario, the current landscape, what is the current instance strategy looking like, number of instances, how are they split, etc. Then what are the different applications which are integrated across the landscape? What is the data ecosystem looking like? What are the tools which are used in data analytics? What is the infrastructure strategy that the organization is following? Is it going cloud first or any different approach or a hybrid approach? All of that needs to be factored in when you assess for an instance strategy. Then you evaluate. So you identify different feasible options, evaluation, build an evaluation criteria, and we can take a quick look at how evaluation criteria is built. Then we score the different options to understand whether, qualitatively or quantitatively, which options are best suited for the business. We do an early validation of the option. That means you have initial options going out to the key stakeholders very quickly rather than waiting till the end and getting, pushback on the options that you are proposing. And finally, understanding the cost and benefits of these options. And in conclude step, you build a business case uh, with all the aspects that you have evaluated in the previous step. So cost, benefits, approach, all of that together forms the business case. And you build a rollout strategy. How is that instant strategy going to be actually delivered? Are you going to do a pilot? Are you going to do a regional rollout? Are you going to do a divisional rollout? All of that needs to be factored. How are you going to scale it? Whether it's going to be applicable for all countries, specific regions, individual subsidiaries, all of that needs to be factored in, and then go to the business to build the buy-in from the business and IT, because that's the most important part in order to get started on an instant strategy development. And then finally, also important, change management planning as to what are the impacts of the instant strategy on the business, on different business users, business functions, making sure that if there are centralized functions involved in the conversation, they are aware of the changes and have bought into the changes as well. Right? So we talked about evaluation and understanding how to evaluate an instant strategy option. So basically, we have listed down over here 7 key considerations which you need to factor in when deciding an instant strategy. Okay, which is first, fitting into the corporate strategy at an overall business level. What is the business and IT target operating model? Is it going to be centralization? Is it going to be a hybrid? Is it going to be offshoring, inshoring? How does business and IT see this operating model evolve? What is the business fit and flexibility that an instant strategy provides? You might want a certain business to grow very fast, allowing them to run, independently of a particular old legacy business. You need to factor that in and score that part. Then what is the risk to business and IT operation? You want always to minimize the risk to existing business and IT. How can you scale something that you have decided? How can you make sure the option that you have chosen is scalable and has high performance as needed by the business? How do you want to ensure the business users are trained, they understand the change, they are fully onboarded, they have bought into the change? That is the change management aspect of it. And then finally, long-term IT and business costs. So how much are you going to spend over 3, 5, 7, 10 years, understanding both from a business point of view as well as IT point of view? And when you do all of this, you can come to largely 3 instant strategy patterns. So the first instant strategy pattern is where companies go for a single global instance in which all the regions, divisions, countries are part of one global instance with a templated process. Then the second one is regional instances where, say, North America, South America, Europe, Asia are on separate instances to provide them flexibility that they need. Or they could also be based on division. So whether a consumer care division is different from life sciences or any other business, that also factors into making an instant strategy decision based on division. So largely we see 3 patterns across the customers we work with, and that allows the customers to have different levels of flexibility. There are very large organizations which go for single instance, and there are very large organizations which go for regional as well as instance per division pattern as well. Right? But today we are going to focus on a specific topic, which we said initially as a 2-tier architecture or the hybrid architecture. And that is specifically important for the pattern, which is regional instances or instances per division. So if you look at what we are seeing as the emerging instance strategy pattern, companies are going for regional instances and divisional instances based on what we call a two-tier architecture. A two-tier architecture is a hybrid instance strategy wherein you have a first tier, which is tier one, which is fully integrated with a tier two ERP. Okay. And that can be tier one can be the headquarters, and tier two can be either a region or a division, which is specifically running on S/4HANA public cloud. Okay. And that is fully integrated with tier one. And we'll see some of the examples of some of the benefits and some of the examples of how two-tier architecture works. So, and when largely do you use two-tier architecture? If you are looking at acquisitions, incubations, divestitures, creating autonomous divisions and regional branches. So if you want to acquire a company and then quickly integrate it into your business, you can put that company on S/4HANA public cloud and onboard that very quickly. If you want to set up a new incubated company, which is a kind of coming out of your tier one or the main organization, you can set it up on a public cloud. If you want to eventually divest a business, you could spin it off and put it on a public cloud and ensure that the divestiture is very easy in future, because of, you can just decouple it very quickly from your tier one instance. If you want to create an autonomous division which runs on its own without much help from the headquarters, that can also be a use case for an instance strategy, and also regional branches where you want a specific country or group of countries to run independently for a region. So these are the 5 major use cases or patterns that we see where companies go for a two-tier architecture. And we have also now seen that companies are going for two-tier architecture as a transition option, going from S/4HANA private cloud to S/4HANA public cloud. And we'll also see an example of that. Right? So why choose a two-tier instance strategy? So firstly, there are different kind of reasons for it, and they can be classified into 3 large buckets: urgency, business fit, and flexibility. If, say, for example, an acquisition is happening, there is not enough time when you transition out of transition out of a service agreement, when you sign the acquisition, to completely integrate the acquired company into your business. That is where a two-tier architecture could be very, very important. And you also might not have enough resources, or you have backlog of requests that are happening on your main instance, and you don't want to disrupt that. You can actually use the two-tier architecture to kind of bring in a new company, or make sure you can divest the company in future. What is the business fit? So in terms of certain functional, industry, cultural, compliance requirements, two-tier strategy with public cloud could be a great option, where you want to make sure that the headquarters or the tier one is completely separate from tier two. And flexibility, where you want to ensure that the company running on S/4HANA public cloud tier 2 instance, that has the freedom to experiment, has clear legal separation, has unknown future ownership. That is where you can actually use this strategy, right? Now we go into a case study of consumer goods company. So this is a company which wanted to integrate a large number of legal entities which did not have manufacturing and were operating on a legacy system. So what they did was, for the companies which did not have manufacturing and were operating on legacy system, they spun up a public cloud instance and started onboarding all of them over there without disrupting anything on the main tier one S/4HANA public cloud instance. And what was the key business considerations and IT consideration? They wanted to have the instance strategy which allows for speedy implementation, standardized processes of sales, procurement, and finance, faster adoption to make sure that they continuously get the latest innovation for their business. Very easy to train because they did not want the smaller entities to spend too much time on training their users, and make sure that it is modern and scalable. So this were the business's requirement. And from an IT point of view, they wanted to have simplified operations and easy to use a solution with low TCO, scalable, extensible to make sure it is compliant with the local regulations and international regulations, and easy integration with the S/4HANA private cloud tier 1 of the headquarters. They also wanted to have a common layer of CRM analytics, which were global in nature, right? So how did they go about this? Like I said, they started with 2 tiers. They had the private cloud for their headquarters and large legal entities, and smaller subsidiaries were onboarded onto public cloud. So, and they also had a layer of CRM, data analytics, ITSM, MDG, etc., and central services which supported across the two instances. Now, when the customer actually places order into a public cloud for the legal entity in question, then it is fully integrated in terms of the master data. So as soon as the sales order comes in, the complete sales process goes into picture, where the company can actually create a purchase order from the headquarters, get the goods issue, make sure the invoicing is done, and get the goods delivered to the customer. With this approach, they could actually make it very, very fast for a new and smaller entities to be onboarded onto public cloud. At the same time, make sure that the countries where this was implemented, you could have localization and you could have extensibility to cater to specific business requirements of that country. So SAP S/4HANA Public Cloud allows for localizations across different countries, and it also allows you to do extensibility on top of it using BTP, and we'll see some of them in the slides further. So this is how they implemented the two-tier architecture. It's still in progress, and it's going to be rolled out to multiple countries in future, right? Another example of a large industrial manufacturing company where they had public cloud edition for one of their businesses across United States, Europe, and Asian countries, and also a private cloud instance for their headquarters and some of the other legal entities that were part of the existing private cloud edition. And that was fully integrated using the integration suite for all master data, transactional data, as well as all the transactions that were going through the system. And then on top of that, they have data-driven management, which is analytics layer, digital boardroom, analytics cloud, and a BW across the organization. Here you will see a slight deviation. Instead of having a single CRM across both landscapes, this organization decided to go for multiple CRMs for for their business needs. A third case study that we have come across also is a large industrial manufacturing company, which is actually using a two-tier architecture as a transition path to full S/4HANA public cloud. What do I mean by that? So they are onboarding initial plants onto S/4HANA public cloud, and they are going to operate the two instances in a two-tiered architecture until they get all the entities onto public cloud. Okay, so they are currently live on public cloud from October on their first plant, and then plan is to implement this template globally for logistics, finance, and manufacturing for Europe and international operations. The ultimate aim of the public cloud global template is to consolidate large number of ECCs and non-SAP systems into public cloud, covering around 1,600 FUEs and around 220 billion revenue. So if you see on the right hand side, they had 13 instances of ECC and around 60 non-federated SAP and non-SAP instances. Eventually, they're going to consolidate all of them into S/4HANA Private Cloud for US, S/4HANA Private Cloud for China, and then S/4HANA Public Cloud together, and bring almost 73 instances into 3 key instances. So this is a major simplification that is happening in the organization. And they decided to go for this strategy because it allows them to have consistent standardized global templates across the organization. It's aligned with their cloud strategy, including harmonization and standardization, and also provides the autonomy and flexibility for one of North America region which has its own business plans, and then it is very easy to maintain this landscape in future, because now they don't have to look at 73 different instances to maintain, right? So this is an ongoing project as well, which is a very important customer of SAP. So what other kind of examples do we have? So we talked about different patterns where we talked about acquisitions, incubation, regional branches, autonomous division, and divestitures. Consumer company in MEE, it's going for S/4HANA Public Cloud for the acquisitions. Uh, a joint venture between Porsche and Schuler has decided to go for S/4HANA Public Cloud for their incubation. And same way, there are examples across Asia, across MEE, in different industries where companies are using it for regional solution, autonomous solution, and also divestitures. Okay. What are the other customer case studies which are really cool in this two-tier architecture is I've also put some of them over here. Rehau, which wanted to move away from an aging platform to the modern platform of S/4HANA Public Cloud. They wanted to implement high productivity solution for them, and also kind of be the lighthouse customers in their lighthouse customers in their industry. They implemented S/4HANA Public Cloud together with SAP Innovation Services, and their partner, and together they have seen tremendous reduction in implementation time, with around 180 shared processes going live in weeks, and then 40% reduction in total cost of ownership with reduced IT cost, minimized risk, and future-proofing architecture. So one quite interesting case study there from China. Then we have a case study of Turimo, which is in Europe, which is a life sciences company, where they have gone for S/4HANA Public Cloud across key subsidiaries while preserving the legacy business as it is at the head office. They wanted something to go live very fast, and that's why they decided to go for two-tier architecture and onboard their subsidiaries very quickly. They did this project going live in 34 weeks with 7 localizations and total delivery time, an additional build for localizations of 14 weeks. And eventually they want to consolidate all their solutions into one ERP platform, right? So now that we looked at some of the customer journeys, we could take a look at how S/4HANA Public Cloud and BTP together supports this two-tier architecture. So if you look at broadly, the public cloud can support key processes across finance, sales, procurement, which are considered to be core ERP. Then services companies, which are, like say professional services, IT companies, consulting companies, those can activate the service-centric scope. Then we have the product-centric scope, which is manufacturing and supply chain. And then we have the business platform, which is extension and integration. This is supported by the BTP solutions, which is actually providing some of the key capabilities which are supporting the public cloud implementation. So advanced financial closing and planning, financial closing, subscription billing, Ariba channel management, Ariba buying, project resource management, and product development. So those are built on top of BTP to support the two-tier architecture. Then we have a very important concept within public cloud, which is extend and integration. As many of you who might have worked on ECC, we have the traditional ABAP way of building anything that we wanted as part of the ECC ABAP stack. That has slowly going away now, and with ABAP Cloud. And what SAP recommends is to have what we call extensibility concept within the public cloud when you are building new solutions on top of that. So if you look at the two key extensibility options available, there is extensibility integrated in S/4HANA Cloud, and there is side-by-side extensibility. When we talk about extensibility integrated in S/4HANA Cloud, we're talking about two different ways of doing it. One is key user extensibility, in which you can easily extend custom fields, custom analytics, custom business objects, and create custom business logic on top of S/4HANA Public Cloud. But if you are a developer, you can also use approved extension points to extend and build custom business logic, extend S4 Cloud, build partner extensions directly on S4 HANA stack. So these, when you talk about developer extensibility, these are the extensions which are running on top of public cloud itself. They are not running on a separate stack. But when we talk about side-by-side extensibility, there SAP Build comes into picture and SAP Pro Code capabilities come into picture. So when we talk about low-code extensibility that is built on SAP Build, we have the low-code development, process automation, workflows, and portals to allow collaboration across the business. And then we have the Pro Code extensibility, which is powerful tools for developers when we talk about business AI, data science, IoT, and very complex solutions that need separate extensible option to run. Then one key question that we always have to answer is when we are running a two-tier integration, two-tier instance pattern, we need to ensure that the integration works smoothly. So we have the tier 1 and tier 2, and both of them need to be integrated on three aspects. They need to be having the right master data across the two systems, right transactional data, and right customizing and config. That includes the supplier mapping, product mapping, etc. So if you look at running the two-tier architecture, you have different ways of integrating. So for master data, you can either have point-to-point integration or through master data integration using BTP, which allows you to have consistent sync between the two systems across master data such as product, customer, vendors, and all the other master data that is needed. Then you also have the transactional data, which allows you to send messages across the two systems for sales order, purchase orders, manufacturing, goods issuing, all of that across the two systems. And then finally, you have the config and customizing data. That is not integrated automatically. That's a manual effort to make sure that the configuration is available in the two systems. So that's how you would integrate tier 1 and tier 2 landscape. There are a lot of resources that SAP provides on this, and I'll go through them now in my further slides. So key resource on the two-tier architecture is our community page. That there you will have all the information of how to implement two-tier architecture, right from product trainings, which are conducted every 6 months, and then what is happening in public cloud in terms of new releases that are planned and released every 6 months. You will also get the links for how to set up manufacturing processes, procurement processes, sales processes, all of that in one place in terms of the best practice. If you want to understand if public cloud implementation can support a particular use case in terms of the regulatory aspect needed for a country, you can use our regulatory change manager, which allows you to see all the regulatory changes that are happening across the globe and to see which products are impacted and which products does it support. So for example, e-invoicing, PDF creation, encryption, data protection, all of those regulatory changes are available over here. So to make sure that the public cloud implementation is compliant for the region that you go for. Then you have the activate methodology, which is specifically provided for public cloud, and that allows you to have detailed project steps across the life cycle of the project, from discover, prepare, explore, realize, deploy, and run. And SAP has provided detailed steps of each of the implementation steps and clear understanding of how you need to make sure that the public cloud implementation is easy and according to the best practices and is fit to standard. Then we have a very important note as well, which is published, which is called two-tier ERP with public cloud edition. And that gives you all the information, all the questions that you might have about a two-tier ERP. What is it? How to implement it? What are the best practices? What are the configuration level? What are the integration aspects? What are the master data changes that you need to make sure for the integration? So all of that is built into this note. So with that, I move on to my last slide. So on 13th of February, we have the Business Unleashed event. So you can use the QR code to sign up for this event, where SAP has really cool announcements on AI, data, and the future of ERP. With that, thank you very much for attending this session. And now maybe Krenar, we can open up for questions.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Gaurish, for the session. And I would have a look at the question. The first question was, what do you mean by fully integrated? The colleague that have raised this question, can you maybe specify a bit what you exactly mean by fully integrated, or where this question belongs to? In the meanwhile, I think we can continue with the other question.
Okay.
Who's helping clients build these integrations between the multiple tiers and also other non-SAP systems that reside on-premise, other clouds, etc.?
Right. So for the integrations which are part of the standard integrations SAP has provided, SAP has provided detailed best practices of how this master data, how the transactional data integrations would work. And they are actually built by the partners who are implementing public cloud at the customers. For the non-SAP systems, those need to be built using standard APIs, standard OData services. So for example, if a customer is using a non-SAP CRM, SAP has provided standard APIs and OData services based on which you can integrate the third-party CRM into SAP.
Okay. How can customers control potential charges from data increase, data transfer fees from the cloud when integrating with systems on-premise or on other clouds? That has been an important pain point for customers running on hyperscalers.
Correct. So when we talk about SAP S/4HANA Public Cloud, all of those commercial discussions are agreed before with the customers. So if there are any data egress charges, which I'm not aware of, those are clearly kind of identified and discussed with the customers. If we are talking about digital access, if then in that case, for two-tier architecture, when you integrate S/4HANA Public Cloud to a private cloud, there are no digital access charges which are applicable. But the best person to discuss this would be your SAP account executive to make sure you understand these considerations clearly.
Okay, hope that this was answered. With regard to the two-tier approach, what are the challenges that are typically seen during the transformation?
Yes. So one of the main challenges is integration, like one of the person asked before. We need to have the clear understanding of which are the processes which are going to be supported across the two tiers. So say, for example, procurement, finance, sales, just starting with the three core processes. Ensure that you understand all the integration points with SAP as well as non-SAP systems, and also get a clear understanding of what additional localizations and extensibility aspects you need to cover before you actually start the implementation. What we recommend is sometimes partners and customers don't like to stick to our activate methodology. Our recommendation is do not reinvent the wheel. SAP has done a lot of amazing content, amazing methodology work on activate for public cloud. And if you follow that across throughout the phases, there shouldn't be big problems. The problem that we see mostly come because the customers or partners try to deviate from the activate methodology when they are implementing this.
Mm. In a scenario where there is intercompany stock transfer, we can implement two-tier architecture. How
Yes,
will this work when one company is in another instance?
that is where the integration comes into picture. So you can do stock transfer across the two systems.
Okay, hope that this answered the question. Do we have any examples of utility industry with two-tier architectures as they are complexities with NERC data in utility domain? What's the best recommended approach for utility customers across NA?
That's an excellent question. I don't have any utilities customer example right now, but maybe I will try to dig out, and then maybe we can put it as part of the YouTube information FAQs, Krenar. But as
Okay,
far as today, I'm not aware of any utilities companies going for two-tier.
okay, good. So I don't see any other questions popping up. Maybe another question from my side. Does SAP provide any best practice processes for the implementation of S/4HANA Public Cloud?
Yes, yes, it does, Krenar. So if you look at, and this is probably a good place to get all the best practice information. So if you look at the process navigator in Signavio, which you can access through me.sap.com, you can see all the different business scenarios. You can actually see a two-tier ERP, which is currently under maintenance. So they are updating the content behind it. But if you look at solution scenarios, you can actually select over here enterprise resource planning and then select best practices for public cloud. Over here, you will get all the processes, standard processes, which are available across the line of business. So in terms of finance, HR, manufacturing, sales, service, supply chain, all of those are pre-built over here. So if we take, for example, one of the scenarios over here, okay, which is what someone asked earlier, which is advanced intercompany sales. That is built over here with advanced intercompany sales, and it provides detailed process flow of how this process works in public cloud. And once the two-tier architecture actually is refreshed as well, you can see how this flows across the two-tier as well. And you can see over here where it is used, what are the accelerators that is supporting. So how do you set it up in public cloud? What are the test scripts, how to test it, and how to use the test scripts in cloud ALM, the detailed overview of the process, which industry it is applicable for, and what are the solution capabilities. So all of these best practices are part of the navigator, and you can see them in detail if you want to look at what SAP is proposing. When we talk about public cloud, the best way to do it is to stick to the standard business processes as much as possible. If you cannot do it in the standard business process, then use the extensibility options, and finally go for side-by-side extensibility if you need to build something on top of that.
Okay. We have another question. Would it be correct to say that one tier has a lower cost, is faster, and should be the default option if the business and IT requirements are met?
Yes, ideally, it would be great if the entire organization operated in on the main one tier, but you will hardly see any big organizations operating in that way. Most of these organizations have, huge number of instances, and that is not maybe by choice. It might be because of historical reasons. They have grown by acquisitions. They have, spun out something and so on and so forth, and there were different considerations at different points in time. So companies some of the companies are trying to go to global one instances, but not many have just one single instance across their business. Very few of them.
Okay. Hope that clarified the questions. As of now, we don't have any other questions. That's the moment for the other participants to either unmute or raise your hand, and then we will unmute you, or type questions in the Q&A chat. If not, then I want to make you aware that our next webinar session is next week, Tuesday. And by next week, we start with a BW modernization series where we have 3 topics all around the BW modernization. I will start next week with modernize and evaluate to the cloud with SAP Integration Suite. But I see we have another question here. Hi all, what about on-premise and private cloud integration?
Those would be just 2 normal instances, right? They are not really, they are 2-tier architecture, but they are existing patterns. So those would be standard integrations as well. Krenar.
Okay. Hope that clarifies the question to the colleague.
If you
Okay.
have any questions, you can always reach out to me on over email or LinkedIn. Happy to answer them separately as well.
Yeah. Is it possible or even recommended BWT best practice to an blue field migration adopt a 2-tier landscape?
Depends on the use case. If you're going for a blue field migration, normally the use case for blue field migration is to consolidate rather than separate it out. So you would want to set up a global template using the blue field migration to get your core processes and innovative processes standardized, and then move your instances across from different instances into one instance. So I see that as more of a consolidation use case in my view, rather than a 2-tier architecture.
Okay. We have another question. Can you go back to the QR code, please?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah. Just for information, we will upload all of the documents in our playlist, which you will find by end of this week. You will find the recording and also the material in our YouTube playlist. I think we have shared the link. And we have there another question. What about HCM and payroll, I think? Is it for private cloud only?
So the broader strategy for HCM is to move it to success factors, and in future success factors is our strategic choice for HCM and payroll. So that would be the line of business solution, and it is out of the box integratable with public cloud as well as private cloud.
Okay. Any further questions from the audience? Okay. Thank you so much, Gaurish. I think it was a very great session, and I see that we had a lot of interested attendees joining this week. So thank you very much, Gaurish. Hope that we can welcome you soon again to our Move to ERP Cloud webinar series. Again, This recording will be shared by latest end of this week in our YouTube playlist, and I welcome you to join to our next week's session, which will be also similar, interesting, where we start with EBW modernization webcast series, where we have 3 interesting sessions. With that, again, thank you very much, Gaurish. Thank you very much to the attendances. Have a nice rest of the day and a good night from wherever you are joining, and talk to you or see you hopefully all soon to our next week's session.
Thank you, Krenar. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you.
Okay.